Hello, and welcome to the site of the official 1968 World's Fair, HemisFair 68, here in the heart of downtown San Antonio, Texas. Today is a special day in HemisFair history as it marks the 58th anniversary of opening day of the official 1968 World's Fair back on April the 6th, 1968. We're currently in front of the western gate here, with gate number 1, which welcomes visitors to the fair and bordered along Alamo Street. We're going to do a quick walk through the fair from the entrance gate here all the way down to the far end on the east end where the State of Texas Pavilion once stood. The fair itself had 5 gates, all open from 9 a.m. to midnight. During the 6-month run of HemisFair 68, we welcomed 6.3 million visitors. Once entering the western gate, the first stop would have been the Humboldt Oil Pavilion. Had exhibits on the ground floor and upper level, and had a video in the rear area. The video was about transportation in the United States, and it was called Hi, My Name is Earl. The neat attraction of the film was more about the behind-the-scenes technology. It had 5 different projectors that ran on one continuous loop. So as the film ended, the film was already rewound or set to reel number 1 for the next showing. The next stop would have been Prairie Interlude, French cuisine. This is one of the few homes that was protected during the fair's development and reutilized. Along with many of the homes here in the neighborhood, which was a neighborhood, all date back to the late 1800s. This originally was a street called Goliad Street, part of the original neighborhood. As you can see, part of the revitalization of HemisFair reintroduced some roadways into the site. As we walk further east into the site, the next stop would have been the first gift shop. This is called the Schulte House, although the house was reconstructed as it was relocated, but the original trim components are still original to the house. First remaining attraction on the right would have been Casa San Miguel beer. It was a Philippine exhibit. And for those that got hungry, we have let's see, I think it's the Maximilian Schulte House here. This was actually a German restaurant during the fair. This is another great example of homes that were preserved for the World's Fair and kept afterwards. Oh, and here we have the German bear from the Berlin Pavilion. It was actually gifted to the city of San Antonio after the fair closed. Go across the street here. Here we have what was used as the house of Sir John Falstaff. He had an eatery and brewery on the first floor, and according to the guidebook, had El Brazo, a club, on the second floor. In 2015, this part of the fair site reopened as Yanaguana Garden, known as Phase 1 of the 3 phases of the revitalization of the HemisFair site. And here we have the fair's theme structure, the Tower of the Americas, towering 622 feet from ground up to the roof, If you include the broadcast antenna, it takes you up to 750 feet above ground level. The building over here to the left, the Mexican Cultural Institute, was actually housed in the bones of the original Mexican pavilion built for the World's Fair. As you can see here, there's a split in the road. We could either continue straight down the original Goliad axis, or we continue on the main axis towards the Tower of the Americas. During the World's Fair, this was actually part of the elevated walkway system. I think for today's video, though, we'll just continue on down towards the end of Goliad. Here is an apartment building that was added in the late 2010s called the 68. It's 151 units on 8 floors. Cool story is I actually got to participate in some of the branding for that, as they asked for original materials for the graphic design standards for the World's Fair. And as a nod to the World's Fair, that's why they call it the 68. Here we have another home that was preserved for the World's Fair. This was actually another eatery. So here on the right, we have the Pavilion of the United States of America. Over here, we have I believe it's an 8,000 square foot Confluence exhibit hall, and obviously the crown jewel of the pavilion, the Confluence Theater. Over here on the left, we have what was built as the RCA Pavilion, Radio Corporation of America. It was one of 15 exhibitors at the fair, and they were showcasing student-assisted learning using their new, then state-of-the-art RCA Spectra 70 microprocessing system. We're currently still walking down what was originally Goliad Street, and actually was repurposed as one of the major walkways for the World's Fair. Where we started was the foreign nations area called Las Plazas del Mundo. As soon as we passed the new apartment building, the 68, that took us out of the foreign nations area into the corporate pavilions area. This building over here was added in the 1980s for Texas A&M San Antonio. Eventually, they relocated to a new property south of town, and is now the current home for the San Antonio Park Police Headquarters. Previously, they were located in the old RCA Pavilion. Here's another beautiful example of home history. This is the Maximilian Schulte House. And during the World's Fair, it was actually, I believe, an eatery. The home coming up here on the left is called the Richter House, dates back to before the Civil War, I think the early 1800s. During the World's Fair, it was used as a gay 90s, 1890s style saloon. It's basically a type of restaurant, had interior decked out in the 1890s, folks wearing attire from that time period. Cool thing about this house is that it actually kind of lines up with the rear exit for the United States Confluence Theater. I actually interviewed one of the folks that worked at this house, and they told me how they would follow up on the show schedule for the year's pavilion. And as the show led out towards the rear, they would be out here introducing people to come on in for beer and sandwiches. This office building was built in the 1970s on a parcel of land acquired by the U.S. federal government. It was built as support offices for um, local officials, uh, various federal offices, including, I believe it's the local office for U.S. House Rep to the U.S. House of Representatives. Here on the left, we're coming up to the Women's Pavilion. This is the only pavilion for HemisFair 68 that was built and paid for not through national or corporate sponsorships per se, but through memberships of $10 each from women from 49 states and I believe 11 nations, including then Princess Grace of Monaco, formerly the actress Grace Kelly. The neat architectural style of this building is that it was actually not really designed for the women's pavilion for the World's Fair. This was part of the fair's exit strategy. As the exit strategy for the fair at the time was the site for the then proposed University of Texas at San Antonio, this was one of the buildings that was designed as a student union building. Cool trick though is that it was actually satisfied two design requirements. One by the Bureau of International Expositions, who awarded the World's Fair, but also by the United States Agency of Urban Renewal. Both of them had a stipulation. Urban Renewal said, we can give you money, but you got to keep a percentage of your development permanent. BIE had the same thing. The next building on your left is the Kodak Pavilion. Eastman Kodak was one of 3 original sponsors that signed up right out of the gate. As you can see, the majority of the building is actually still here. The only thing that's really kind of missing is the cube sign at the top of the building, kind of like the square flash bulbs used in other cameras, including the Kodak Instamatic, which was popular at that time. For the World's Fair, prior to the building of this building, this was the site of 2 pavilions. This was actually where the location for IBM Durango and the Youth Pavilion. You may or may not be able to see it from the video, but the foundations here on the left are circular. This was originally the foundations for the Coca-Cola Pavilion. They actually were one of 2 pavilions, or 2 venues actually, that had shows produced by 5th generation puppeteers Sid and Marty Krofft. They had the French Revue show over by the arena, but then they also had the Classical Puppet Show here at the Coca-Cola Pavilion. 2 main characters from that show went on to become Witch of Who and H.R. Pufnstuf in the show of the same name in the early 1970s. This area here, which is now a parking lot, was actually the eastern terminus for the Swiss Sky Ride, an elevated walkway system in this area of the site. The spot here, which is all now grass, was actually the site of the State of Texas Pavilion, which is by far the largest pavilion at the fair. As the host state, it told the story of the confluence of civilizations in the Americas, which basically tells the story of all the ethnic groups which settled the region. Well, that pretty much wraps up today's walking tour of the site of the official 1968 World's Fair, starting at the western gate on Alamo Street and here on the eastern end at the site of the former State of Texas Pavilion. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe and like for more videos.